One of the main reasons why we create web applications is so that the users will interact with them, and in turn we can be able to get feedback or response from users. When we want to collect data from users of our website, we make use of HTML forms. A good example of this would be the contact us or feedback form, which requires the users to submit their names, for example, their email address, and also a message. To create a form, we make use of the form tag. It has opening and also a closing, just like most of the other elements that we've seen. In between the opening and closing form tag, you then specify the form element that you want. To illustrate this better, let's create a simple registration form. For this example, we're going to require basically the username, password, address, the country, gender, computer skills, and also the picture of the user. So the first field that we want is going to be the username field. To collect the username, we're going to use the input control, and the type will be test. This basically represents a single line test input control, which will be suitable to collect the username or the email address of the user. Okay, next we save and do a refresh. And here we have the test and we have the form here. Let's put a nice heading here. Okay, we'll go to new line. Next we want the password. This we're also going to use the input control. This time the type will be password. The password type will basically mask the text that the user is entering into the input field. Save and refresh the page again. We type, you can see that the text is being masked. Okay, let's add one more BR here. Next, let us collect the address. The single line input type may not be suitable to collect the address. So in this case, we need multi-line test input control. And for this, HTML gives us the test area, which allows us to collect more tests from users. Your address, and here we can specify the columns, say 7, and the rows, let's say 4. Okay, let's increase the column to 25 and save. Let's reduce it to 20 and 23. Okay, and also I need to add a BR tag here. Okay, so for now we're less interested about the style, so we can move this text fit in nicely. Refresh, and that fits correctly. Next we want to get the gender, and for this we're also going to use the input control, but this time because we want the user to select one value, we're going to use a radio button. The type is equal to radio, and add here we can say male. Let's grab all of this, save and refresh. You can see the radio button there. Let's add the BRO tag here, and let's put the text here, gender. Next, we want the user to specify their list of computer skills. So to give the user the ability to specify more than one option, we're going to use a checkbox. Input, and we specify the type, goes to checkbox. With the checkbox, we can allow the user to choose more than one options. Java, then I'm just going to grab this. JavaScript, PHP, HTML, CSS. Save and refresh. Next, we want the user to enter their country. Take a BRO tag, put here. For the country, because we want to provide a list of options for the user, we can use the select box control. To create the select box control, we're going to use a different element, select. In between the opening and closing select box control, we now specify the various options. USA, this is Australia, UK, France, just add one more, Nigeria. Save and refresh the page, and here you can see the drop down list. So far we have the username, password, the address, the gender, computer keys, and then we have the country. So let's add one for the picture. To allow users to upload their pictures, we use the file type of the input control. We can give another parameter to say if you accept any image extension. Save and refresh, and we have the file here which the user could use to browse through their computer. So let's put a break tag here. Save and refresh, and add one more. To allow the users to submit this form, we need to create a button here. So for that, we use the submit input type. So call this submit, and this gives us a button. We'll specify a value for this button. Register. Save and refresh. We can also create another type of button, which will be a reset button. All we need to do is to change the type to reset, and then here we can put the text cancel. Okay, let's move our buttons to a new line. So far, we're not applying any style to our form, but basically it's just to get the concept of how to create a form using basic HTML. Now, if I submit this form, maximize this, you can see that nothing happens when I submit the form. This is because we're not sending any information along with the form, and also there are some controls that we have not specified for the form. To make our form work properly, we need to specify an action for the form. This action attribute is basically going to say where the form is going to submit the data to. So in a normal web application, this is going to be the backend script, such that when the user clicks on the register button, all the information from the form will be submitted to the script that we specify here. So for now, I'm going to leave this as blank, but this is important. And next, we're going to specify the method for sending this data. The two most basic methods for sending form information is the get and post. We're going to talk more about this later when we really get into web development. So for now, just know that we have a method and we can set it to either get or post. The default is actually get. Let's use get for now in order to explain some concepts. Okay, I'll save and refresh. I'll submit. You're also going to notice that there is no change. If I maximize the web browser, you can see that at the end of the URL, you have a question mark here. Normally, after this question mark, you're supposed to see the various parameters appended here with their values. Because we have not specified the name control for our input, this is why we're not getting anything there. So for example, I'm going to say name of this, name control is username. If I save and refresh and maximize this, let's submit the form. You can see that username, but it's equal to nothing. Let's say Tedia, and then save. You can see username is equal to Tedia. So let's quickly add names control for all the forms. Password. So it's important we add the name control. Without this, we'll not be able to send the information over to the script that will process the form. So this is the address. For the radio button, if I come over here and click on male, you'll see that I'll also be able to select female. Remember that I said previously that the radio button is supposed to allow the users to choose only one option. The way that we ensure that the user is only able to choose one option from the available list is to actually assign the same name for all the radio buttons. So say gender, copy this, and then I'll paste it here. Save and do a refresh. Now I won't be able to select both of them at the same time. I can only choose one. Okay, next for checkbox, set the name to skis, and we're also going to use the same name for all of them. Okay, one more thing here is that for the checkbox and for the radio button, we can actually specify by default which one is chosen using the checked parameter. So if I save and refresh the page again, the mail option is always going to be checked. I cut this out and paste it here. Refresh the form, you see that the female option is always going to be checked. The same thing I can do for the checkbox. If I want this to be checked, I'll just save this and do a refresh. You can see that Java is checked here. So this attribute allows us to specify a default value when we're using either the radio button or the checkbox. So get rid of this, and refresh the page. So for select, we're going to give a name and say country. File, we also specify a name for this file and say avatar. All right, I'll save and do a refresh. Maximize this. So if we put in some values here, and here we'll select female. For computer skills, we'll choose HTML, CSS, and PHP. The country, we're going to select Australia, and then we're just going to choose one file. If we click on the cancel button, it's going to clear the form completely. If we click on the register button, because we are using the get method, it will send all the values to the URL. And you see that all the values are actually sent to the URL. So later in the course, we're going to see why it is not okay to use the get method to collect form values. So I've only used this to actually explain what is happening within our form here. The best option would be to use the post method whenever we want to collect data from the form. So one last form control element that I didn't talk about here is the hidden form control. Let's try to add this. Input type hidden, name control will be user ID. Say value 01. The hidden form control allows us to send information through the form that will not be visible to the user. Let's refresh this page to illustrate. If you see that this hidden type is not being shown on the web page, but if we view the source of this document, we'll be able to see that the hidden type is actually here. This is basically what we need to know to start working with HTML forms. You're going to learn more about processing forms when we get to server-side programming.